Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Manitoba Agriculture Crop Talk webinar. If you have any questions today, please type them into the Q&A icon located in the bottom toolbar, and we'll answer them at the end of each presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a link to the recording. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. I'd like to welcome everybody to the November 15th edition of CropTalk. And seems kind of fitting today to talk about weather when it looks like it's going to be such a nice day out there. So we had the opportunity to get Allison Sass on, and she's going to give us a bit of a weather update, kind of a look at what we went through this past year and maybe some of her predictions, what we might expect this winter, look into her crystal ball. So we'll start with that, and then there was a couple of questions and then a few slides about upcoming events. There's quite a few events that are starting to pop up, so I thought I'd give some information regarding those. So with that, we'll start off with Allison. So Allison, if you're ready to go.
Sure thing. I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me. How are we looking there?
You're looking perfect.
Great. Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'm Allison Sass, and I'm the Ag Meteorology Specialist with Manitoba Agriculture. And my job here is I help to run the network. So I work really closely with field staff to keep the stations running. And I kind of manage all the data, get to look at all the trends and stuff that we see across the province. So today I'm just going to give you a little summary of what we saw this past growing season, and I'll give you a little bit of what we're seeing in terms of predictions for the overwinter time. And and at the end I can answer any questions that might pop up. So in a nutshell, we can think of the 2023 growing season as, I like to think about it as a bingo card, with each field having their own bingo card, because we saw the theme of the whole year was variability, variability, variability. We saw differences in precipitation over tiny distances, because most of the rain we got was in isolated storms. We saw variation in temperatures. We saw high temperatures, higher than we're used to at different parts of the growing season. We saw precipitation early in the season and late in the season, but not in the middle. So if I used my sunshine bingo dabber to go through the season, the chances of getting that perfect bingo with a perfect soil moisture, perfect seeding conditions, great weather for harvest, and getting great yields in the end, or even any of the other bingos, all rely on that main free square, whereas the perfect amount of precipitation at the perfect time. And I don't think, maybe a couple of people did get that, but it's definitely not something that we saw widespread across the province. And during some of the presentations I did during the summer, we'd ask how many producers had too much rain, and some people would put up their hand. Others, how many people had too little rain. Others would put up their hands. How many just had just right? Wouldn't see many hands up, and then someone would shout out, depends on the field. So again, that variability over the short distances was really, really one of the challenges that we saw over the season. Something that was unique that we don't see too often, that was, we started the growing season off with very high temperatures. So at the end of May and into June, we were seeing 30-degree temperatures and up, and we were also seeing high overnight lows. So what that did was it really brought our growing degree day and our corn heat units up way above what we expect for normal during the beginning of the season. So these maps show a whole lot of red. Red means hot. And you can see that both the corn heat units and the growing degree days, the majority of the province, except for a couple of little pockets, I think maybe 2 stations, were over 125% of the normal. So that's based on the 30-year averages. Doesn't mean that every day was above normal, but there were enough days and enough warm nights that really brought the percent normal temperatures above what we would expect at that time of year, which may have been favorable for seeding and early crop growth. Soil temperatures warmed up nicely. But the challenge came with the lack of precipitation. So this is the early part of the season. So from May 1st to May 30th, we saw a decent amount of precipitation. Again, the percent normal precipitation that early in the season always shows it a little bit on the dry side because there's not a lot of, it's not a long period to compare to the normals. But we did see a big, pretty much all of the central region and the interlake and sections of the northwest well below normal. So under 50% of the 30-year average for that time period. And again, you can see these dark blue areas, which indicate rainfall accumulations over 150, 140% of normal. And it really kind of shows up that some of that variation that we saw beginning. So these were, you can see a bunch of big storms that dumped a lot of rain in one period. In terms of soil moisture, at the beginning of June, did I miss something? Hold on. Oh, no, sorry about that. At the beginning of June, we saw, compared to field capacity, we saw optimal to wet soil conditions. Through the majority of the province, there was a pocket of dry to very dry conditions in this central eastern region, a little bit in the interlake where we saw those low rainfall amounts, and then a portion up in the northwest as well. Keep in mind when we're reviewing these soil maps in particular, that these are based on one site in a field, and soil moisture can vary greatly even within a field. So this is just taken from measurements at our weather station. So again, we didn't start the year off too badly. At the beginning of June, we were seeing still optimal conditions for the majority of the province. By the end of June, conditions were still pretty dry. We didn't see a lot of rainfall accumulation in the central region, and there were concerns about it being too dry. Plus, we had those very warm temperatures. So we did see some heat stress. They were hot. There was a lot of transpiration happening with the plants, but they weren't getting the rainfall they needed. But in between June 20th and July 9th, we had some much needed rainfall. So we were able to accumulate some more rainfall in the western regions, and even in those central regions, we saw an increase in the rainfall accumulation. But there were areas such as Altona still had less than 60 millimeters of rain accumulated for the whole season. So from May 1st, they had less than 60 millimeters of rain by July 9th. So that is much lower than normal. The central region still needed more rain after that rainfall. But again, just highlights that variability even within regions. Here's Austin had a lot of rain, but Treeherne barely had any in those 2 weeks there. So the precipitation levels between those 2 weeks with those, that was like the first time we had a nice kind of solid rainfall that kind of encompassed the whole agri-region of Manitoba. Up until then, it was just isolated storms, and it was like rolling the dice. Did you get rain or did you not? And it was really unpredictable and really variable. So you can see that even with that rainfall, a large portion of central Manitoba was still below 50% of the normal precipitation that we'd expect compared to the 30-year average. One thing to consider when we're looking at these maps as well, that isn't captured, especially in a year like we saw this past growing season, is it doesn't take anything about timing into account or timing throughout the year. So it's accumulated precipitation since May 1st, so it doesn't give an indication of when during between May 1st and July 9th that rainfall happened, and it doesn't give any indication of the intensity. So for example, in this June 20th map, we see Fisherton has over 150% of their compared to the 30-year average rainfall, but it doesn't tell us that they actually got the majority of that rainfall in a day and a half. So a huge storm, they get tons of rainfall, the soil can't infiltrate that that rainfall right away. A lot of that's going to run off, and it's not going to be available for the plants. That did happen, I think, in early to mid-June, so there was likely plants around to use some of that water. But for example, if we'd had that earlier in May, it's not even really necessarily useful for crops at that period. So that's something to consider when we're looking at these maps as well, is what stage are the crops at, how fast did that rain fall, and we also got quite a few hailstorms this year as well during those isolated thunderstorms, so there was some hail damage at certain parts of the province. And by the end of the growing season, by October 29th, much of Agro-Manitoba still had accumulated precipitations below normal, although a little more closer to normal than we were seeing in the mid-season. So areas of the central region were still around 50 to 60% of the 30-year average, thanks to some fall rates that we had. But the eastern regions, Interlake and parts of the Northwest, were closer to normal, around the 70 to 90% range. And by the end of that season, the only station that we had that was above normal was our station at Fisherton. Again, mostly due to that major storm they had in June, but they did receive a couple of other isolated rainfalls as well later in the season. By the end of the growing season, we were starting to see some more cooler overnight lows, which are more expected, especially during the late summer and into the fall. So while the entire province was showing growing degree days still above normal, it was much closer to normal. So we were seeing around 115% of the normal growing degree days. Corn heat units also showed the same trend. I just chose to show you the growing degree days. So still warm temperatures. And what actually happened was we had some very warm days in September as well. So the season was really warm at the beginning, kind of evened out in the middle of the season in June and August, July and August. We started to see those closer to normal overnight lows, which helped to bring the accumulation of growing degree days down closer to normal. And then we had a big boost of pretty warm temperatures early in the fall. And so currently, what are we seeing? So when we do produce these maps, we consider our growing season to go from May 1st to October 31st. And then we start a whole new round of off-season maps that start on November 1st. So looking at the percent normal accumulation so far since November 1st, it looks a world of difference than we saw in the summer. So we're seeing dry conditions, then drier than normal conditions in the far south. So in the southeast and southern parts of the central region are around 50 to 60% of normal. And then we had quite a bit of rain and snow and sleet and freezing rain and pretty much all the kinds of precipitation you can think of up in the Northwest, Interlake, and eastern regions, with some areas actually having over 250%, that 250% of normal precipitation just in the first 2 weeks of November. So we had quite a bit of precipitation. Again, this is liquid total precipitation. So our rain gauges they collect snow, and then the snow melts in our gauge, and we measure the weight of the liquid in the gauge. So it doesn't give us an indication of how deep the snow is or what kind of snow it is. So again, this is a little skewed because it is early in the season. We don't have a huge time period to compare to, but in terms of comparing it to the normals for that same time period, we're seeing above normal for a good portion of the province. And we usually don't do soil moisture maps in November, but the soil temperatures are still well above zero. So I drew up this map yesterday. So this is the soil moisture that we're seeing as of November 13th. And it's showing, again, it's not optimal to be growing plants now due to temperatures, but in terms of field capacity soil moisture, we're seeing wet to optimal soil moisture conditions, which is nice to have going into the winter. Once the ground freezes, we do produce fall soil moisture maps to give us an indication of how much water is in the soil at freeze up, because we're not going to get any more water once the soil is frozen. And it kind of gives us an indication of how much available water we're going to have in those soils in the spring. It's also used to give an indication of how much runoff we might be able to expect in the spring, but there's a lot of variabilities that go into that, including how much snowfall we get once the soil is frozen, how fast the snow melt occurs, and then depending on where you are, what your soil moisture conditions are during that thaw. So what can we expect going forward for the next few months over the winter? The Environment and Climate Change Canada models are predicting about a 40% probability that temperatures for the months of November, December, and January will be higher than the 30-year average. Again, this is not an indication that every day is going to be warmer than average. It's just saying there's a slightly higher chance that temperatures might be above normal over the next 3 months on average. And this is a 3-month forecast as well. So forecasting that far in the future is very challenging. So always kind of take these with a grain of salt. And in terms of precipitation, again, precipitation is very difficult to forecast 3 months in advance. But Climate Change Canada are predicting an equal probability that precipitation amounts will be lower than normal or above normal. So there's equal probability, meaning that it's undetermined what the overall accumulated precipitation will be over the next 3 months. And one thing to add to the mix, to add to our unpredictability that we've seen so far and our variability, is 2023 is an El Nino year. This adds to possibly more variability and unpredictability in the forecasts. So what El Nino is, I should summarize, is it's a cyclical warming of the Pacific Ocean, and it happens naturally every, I think, about 4 years. Don't quote me on that, but every few years. And what happens is the temperatures increase over the Pacific Ocean, the atmosphere above the ocean increases in temperature, and that impacts temperatures and weather conditions around the whole world. So usually in Canada, we tend to see we see on average warmer temperatures and drier conditions. However, we never know when in the year that's going to happen. We don't know how extreme those increased temperatures or dry conditions will be. Sometimes it's not very pronounced at all, and forecasters tend to forecast the worst case scenario, and we rarely ever see that with El Nino. So there is a possibility that we might see warmer than normal temperatures for the rest of the fall. From what I read, they say usually the effects of El Nino in Canada anyways are felt more in the late fall to spring of the El Nino year. However, we also saw some warmer temperatures in the spring. We're not sure if that's due to El Nino or not. So basically, it just adds another complication to forecasting. So we might see warmer than normal temperatures throughout the winter, and we might have drier than normal conditions as well. But really, it's kind of a game of wait and see on to the extent and the timing of these El Nino impacts. So that's the summary and the future going ahead. And I just want to remind you that we don't stop in winter, so you can still access all of our live weather data on our website. We update our stations, our stations update their information hourly during the winter, just to save power on some of those stations, but you can still see all the live temperatures, rain or precipitation, wind speeds, etc. throughout the winter. We also produce weekly maps throughout the winter, so there's not quite as few as there's not as many maps as we produce in the summer, but we do produce precipitation and temperature maps throughout the winter. Later this fall, so probably I'm guessing the end of November into December, we'll be releasing our fall soil moisture maps. So we need to wait until the upper depths of soil have frozen across the majority of the province before we produce these maps. So I'm guessing probably the end of November. And we also release our annual extremes map in January. So that's where we go back and look through all of our data for the year and make a fun little infographic about what station had the warmest temperature of the year, what had the coolest, what was the most rainfall, least rainfall, etc. And I'd like to end by thanking everyone that joined us this morning for their time. And I'd also like to extend a thanks to my Manitoba Ag Weather Program crew, especially our field staff that works tirelessly all summer to keep our stations up and running. This year we were short a little bit of staff, and our technician, Ian Petcow, actually did all the maintenance visits himself. So he went out to 120 weather stations to do maintenance on them within about a month of each other. So without their hard work, we wouldn't have much good data to show. So thanks to my crew. And yeah, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks, Allison. Yeah, there's been a couple of questions that I've gotten. One of them, I think you answered, well, you did, I think, answered it. Is the ground frozen yet? And I guess depending on what part of the province you're in, I guess some areas it might be. Do all the weather stations have ground temperatures?
Yes. So I'm just gonna wiggle my map over here. So you can actually view this as well on our website. So this is our live conditions page. And if I go to the soil temperature map, I can check the depths. So there's 5 centimeter, 20 centimeter, 50 and 100 centimeter depths. And then the temperature legend is here. So this is showing the majority of our stations kind of between 0 and 10 degrees. Most of them are around under 5 at the 5 centimeter depth. I do believe we wait until the 20 centimeter depth has frozen as well. This one is, don't pay attention to this station, but yeah, so it's not quite frozen yet from what we can see. Again, this is at our weather stations. So soil temperature also varies greatly over a field, and we have grass cover on our stations as well. And depending on where there's snowfall, the snow tends to insulate the soil, so we see those temperatures drop a little slower.
Okay, and I guess everybody would like a weather station at their place. So the question is, are you still setting up weather stations?
It depends on the location. Like we have a really good coverage right now. So ideal spacing between stations is about 20 to 30 kilometers, which we have when we also use the Environment Canada stations in our region. We may be planning to add some more on the northern fringe in the next couple of years. But if there's a location and a person that's eager to host a station, or if there's a microclimate, for example, that you don't feel is being captured, we can definitely look into that. So as long as there's cell coverage, a piece of land to put it on, and it's within the agricultural region, it's a possibility that we can look into it anyways. And they just have to reach out to me. They can send me an email and we can discuss further.
Okay, and sometimes the weather stations aren't, I guess, updating. What's the main reason that usually happens?
It depends on where you're seeing the updating. So I do get questions throughout the summer about the crop report that we submit. So if your station is missing from the crop report, that usually means it's either been missing data for more than 2 days or there's a questionable sensor. And so we want to maintain the integrity of that crop report. So if we see too much erroneous data, we take it out of the crop report. We do have issues occasionally during the summer. Our stations report to our database every 15 minutes. And because we have a pretty robust network now of 120 stations, sometimes our server gets bogged down and it usually just causes a reboot. Or it results, I need to reboot the server. But we don't see that problem as much in the winter because we're only reporting hourly. Also, our server does updates as well, usually monthly. I try to catch it, but it seems like it's a different day every month. So sometimes that causes a delay in the updates as well. However, during those updates, if the station isn't updating and that it's a server issue, as soon as that server is rebooted, all of the information is put into the server. So we don't lose data when that happens. Another situation might be the station has just stopped reporting. There might be a communication error. So all our stations communicate on cellular. So there might be a cellular signal failure. It might be a battery failure as well. We don't see that often in the summer, but in the winter, occasionally we do. And usually we try to get out there, but to remove the solar panel or anything, but we have upgraded all of our stations with an extra solar panel. And we really see that that has improved the uptime of our network. So usually it's just as simple as an update. Also, I noticed this morning we were having issues with this map page, which is kind of out of my control. And as soon as I went to email our IT person about it, it came back online. So there's also things on the government back end that sometimes can affect the weather pages as well. But we do try our best to keep things up and running. And yeah, if everything is offline, be assured that I'm frantically trying to reboot things and tweak things on my end. So, and if you have questions or you notice anything offline or you have questions about sensors, please feel free to email me and I can always update you on the situation for that particular sensor.
Okay, and just one thing that I ran into this year, and I was just wondering if you maybe just could show us, is it capable, or the site capable of, say, if I was doing something right now, going back in time, like in history, what happened, say in June or July when I was spraying, to get the information I need, say on wind conditions or moisture or whatever?
We do, however, due to IT constraints, let me just we haven't updated it for a long time, so it's missing a lot of stations. I'm just gonna see if I can. So in these seasonal, hourly, and daily summaries, you can pull up this daily report. And again, we do not have all of our stations on here. So if I was to pick Boissevain, for example, from April to November, take a minute, and it gives you a very kind of bare bones summary. So growing degree day, corn heat units, and temperatures and precipitation. So nothing about wind speed. The best thing to do if you have a data request and you want to see what happened in the past is to send me an email. We are working on ways to get the historical data more accessible to the public, but it's a long road. So the best thing to do is to send me an email, and you can customize your request that way. You can get soil information, wind information, and we have either 15-minute, hourly, or daily information, and I can always put those into monthly summaries for you or whatever. So it's a little more customizable. You do have to be patient. Usually I'd get to the data requests within a week.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good information, because I know sometimes producers run into some problems out in the field and need to know kind of wind conditions and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
they know they can get it, and that's good information.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks, Allison. That was a lot of good information. And like always, it's like we were talking before, it's always hard to predict what's going to happen in the wintertime, but it's nice to know that I guess that right now, anyways, we got good weather, and hopefully not going to get to -30 or -40 for a while soon.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we're going to just go into the crop scouting panel, and I had a question for Kim Brown this week that came in and was talking regarding safe storage of herbicides and fungicides during cold temperatures. And in the past, a lot of producers would, have a jug of this or a jug of that, and it was easy to, find a spot that was warm to keep it in for the winter. But now with more and more totes and barrels and stuff, the guys were asking, what are some of the things we should be watching for as we get into winter? So, Kim, if you're on, if you could maybe answer that or give us some insight as to how to handle some of the carryover chemical we have in the farm.
Okay, thanks very much, Lionel. Yeah, so actually the best resource that you've got is our guide to crop protection, because on every product page in there, we take, that's a synopsis of what's on the labels. So you can either check the label, which, should come with every product that you buy. It'll be, in the jug, on the side of the jug, or it's on the box. But it's also on our product pages, and those are easy to find. So I think you'd asked about glufosinate or like Liberty and basically glyphosate. So if you go to the product pages and you look in the restriction part, which is the very last part on the product pages, it's usually where it talks about buffer zones and rainfall and recropping entry recropping restrictions and that type of thing. There's actually part of that says storage, and so then that area, that'll tell you whether or not that product can be frozen or not. So for instance, glufosinate says do not freeze, whereas glyphosate says may be frozen. So you can go to every product you've got and check it that way. If it says do not freeze, then it's got to be kept in some type of heated storage. The ones that can freeze, that can be frozen, come springtime when you need to use them again, or when they need to be used, just warm them up and then just watch for anything that like crystallizes out. And usually, you let them warm up completely, just kind of at room temperature and stuff. Let them thaw, I guess, and then warm to room temperature, and basically just check for any crystals that have salted out or anything like that, and give it a good shake, and it usually goes back in solution. So that's where you need to check, and that info is, like I said, it's in the guide and it's easy to find.
Okay, and if I had a product like Liberty in a tote and it did freeze for a period of time, best to talk to the rep or one of the reps before you try using it in the spring?
Yeah, because you'd hate to be disappointed if that didn't work or if that caused problems in the sprayer. And lots of times, if sometimes they just don't come back into solution, and they're chunky, and you can't get them back in solution, and they're you can't be putting that in your sprayer. But yeah, like I said, every product you've got, check the guide to crop protection, check that under the restrictions. Again, it's the very last part of the product pages, and so look under storage, and so all the info on all the products is there.
Great. Hey, Kim, thanks for that. A few slides regarding things that are going to be happening in the near future. For those of you that wanting, and this would, of course, would be more set up for agronomists or people that are maybe doing some field scouting and advice to producers. John Hurd and oh geez, name went out of my head just now. Doggone. Anyways, there's a course going to be coming up in Carmen at the research farm there, and at the University of Manitoba. Sorry. And anyways, to get a register for this, there's going to be 40 people registration limit. It's on December the 22nd. And if you're interested in going, contact Marley Rickman. There's going to be some good soil nutrient credits as well as soil and water management credits. So a good course, and they're going to be taught by Don Flayton and John Hurd, and it'll be, and Marla's going to be there as well. So again, just some good information and helping you get some more credits for your CCA. Also, soil fertility workshop, and this one's geared more towards producers. It's hosted by the Crop Alliance, Manitoba Pulse and Soybean, Manitoba Canola Council. There's going to be 2 of those happening. It's a 3-day or 2-day event, and each location. And one is going to be in Selkirk, and one's going to be in Brandon. I think you just need to be watching their websites. I haven't seen anything as to registration for them or pre-registration for them yet. So just keep an eye out for that one happening. This one again, and one in Selkirk and one in Brandon. The Watershed Conference happening December 4th to the 6th in the Keystone Center in Brandon. Here's an opportunity to learn about a lot of the things happening with our watershed districts, and so opportunity for doing projects on your farm and finding out what's going on. So if you're interested in doing some work on the farm, might be an interesting conference to attend. The CAP meetings are being started already and are going to be going on till December 15th. So if you're interested in attending one of the CAP meetings in your area, if you go to their website, the locations and times will be listed there. And I'm sure they would like some pre-registration, because I think there's meals going to be involved as well. So check out the website or give a call to the CAP office. Manitoba Agronomist Conference. This is something that usually gets booked up fast. It's happening on December 13th and 14th. They're taking registrations now. So if you're interested, go to the website and get registered. There's an early registration deadline, and that's coming up, and that's on November the 26th. So again, if you're interested in going to the agronomist conference or you haven't been there yet, it's definitely a lot of good information. So check out that site to get registered for that. The big day in Manitoba is coming up. Manitoba Ag Days will be coming up on January 16th, 17th, and 18th. So we're getting closer. Tickets are on sale now. So if you're interested in going and want to get some tickets ahead of time, definitely look at starting to purchase those. CropTalk will be on the agenda again this year. And so if you've got want to come and listen to some of the specialists and have questions to ask, join us. We're going to be on Tuesday, the January 16th at 9:30 a.m. in the Myers North Penny Theater. So in the morning. So definitely come on down. If you have questions that you would like to get in ahead of time, my email address will be at the end of the presentation here today, and you can definitely send them to me, myself, or Lori, and we'll make sure they get asked at the session on the 16th. Crop Connect Conference, again, that's a little bit later into the 14th and 15th of February, but just to save the date if you're interested in going there. Another good conference held in Manitoba. Environmental Farm Plan, it's online. Just thought I'd give a reminder about that. I think If you're interested in doing stuff on your farm, doing projects on your farm, improving your soil health, your water management skills, lots of projects are available, but in order to get started, you need to have taken your environmental farm plan. It's online. It's fairly easy and straightforward to do. So if you're interested, check out the website. And if you have questions, there'll be people there you can contact, or you can contact myself or Lori, and we will help you get to where you need to go. The Manitoba hay listing service. See a lot of bales being moved around right now. So if you've got bales for sale and want to get them on, there are 2 phone numbers there. Would be the ones to call, give your information, and they'll get posted on the website. If you're looking for feed, that's the place to go. A lot of good information there as to where feed is located, and closest locations to yourself. The crop production extension specialists, there's their names, locations, and so if you got questions as we get into fall here or winter here, be starting to plan for next year. So if you've got questions about what you're thinking of doing for next year, maybe some issues you ran into last year that you'd want some more information on, give any of us a call and we'll definitely give you a hand. Livestock livestock specialists, they're busy right now doing a lot of ration balancing for producers, looking at just helping producers get ready for the fall and winter feeding season here. So definitely, if you've got questions or have an issue on the farm or want some help getting your livestock in the best condition as possible, give these people a call. Your harvest production reports are going to be coming due. I'm pretty sure it's the end of the month here. So keep on top of that one. There's the locations for the MASC service centers in the province. If you got any questions regarding the report, give them a call. The number is there and beside each office, and their 1-800 number as well. I put this on a few times. If you're going to be measuring bins, just some information as to figuring out what's in the flat part of the bin, and then what's in the cone, or in the cone on top, or the hopper on the bottom. So if you're trying to figure out what you have in the bin, this will give you a chance, or help you figure that out. And with that, that's our crop talk for today. We'll be off now till November 29th will be our next one. And so thanks for attending. And if you have any questions, there's mine and Lori's contact information. Thanks.